Rain hammers down on bare concrete as Leah Vance bleeds out in an industrial alley, discarded like trash by the husband who swore to love her. Ethan Vance, powerful, untouchable, merciless, left her to die. But as her vision blurs, a shadow cuts through the storm. Adrian Romano, a man who doesn't deal in mercy, only control. He kneels beside her broken body, rain streaming down his face, and makes her an offer that will shatter everything she thought she knew about survival. You're mine now. This is the story of a woman who traded one cage for another and found freedom in the last place she expected. Drop a like, comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels, and stay until the end. You won't believe where this goes. The rain came down like punishment. Leah couldn't tell anymore where the water ended and the blood began. Both pooled beneath her, both cold, both indifferent to whether she lived or died. Her ribs screamed with every shallow breath. One eye had already swollen shut. The other barely focused on the brick wall across the alley, slick with grime and years of city rot. She tried to move her fingers. Nothing. Tried to curl her legs inward. Pain exploded white-hot through her hip, and she choked on a sound that might have been a scream if she'd had the air for it. Ethan had done this, her husband, the man who'd promised her the world 6 years ago in a sunlit chapel with 200 witnesses and a string quartet, the man who'd smiled at her over morning coffee and held her hand at charity galas, the man who'd slowly, methodically, over the course of those 6 years, turned her into something small and silent and terrified. Tonight, he'd finished the job. She remembered the look in his eyes when he'd shoved her into the car. Not rage. Rage would have been almost human. This was calculation. Cold, businesslike efficiency. He'd driven her here, dragged her out by her hair, and beaten her with the same detached focus he brought to his board meetings. "You've become a problem," he'd said, each word punctuated by his fist connecting with her stomach, her face, her ribs. "And I don't keep problems around." She tried to beg, tried to ask why, but the words came out broken, pathetic, and he just looked at her like she was something that had already stopped existing. Then he'd walked away, left her here in the rain, in an alley that smelled like piss and rotting garbage, to bleed out alone. Leah's vision dimmed. She thought about her mother, dead 5 years now. Thought about the girl she'd been before Ethan, bright, loud, full of plans. That girl was gone. Had been gone for a long time. Maybe this was mercy. Maybe dying here was better than living one more day as Ethan Vance's wife. She let her eye close. Then she heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. The kind of footsteps that didn't stumble or rush. The kind that knew exactly where they were going. Leah's eye cracked open. A man stood at the mouth of the alley, backlit by the distant streetlights. Tall, broad-shouldered. Wearing a dark coat that the rain slid off like it didn't dare touch him. For a second, she thought maybe Ethan had come back to finish it. But this man didn't move like Ethan. He stepped forward, into the alley, and the dim light caught his face. Sharp features, dark hair slicked back from the rain, eyes that looked like they'd witnessed every ugly thing the world had to offer, and stopped being surprised. He stopped 3 feet from her and looked down. Didn't gasp. Didn't rush forward, just looked. Leah tried to speak, but all that came out was a wet, rattling sound. The man crouched, bringing himself to her level. Up close, she could see the lines around his mouth, the scar that cut through his left eyebrow, the way his gaze moved over her injuries with clinical precision. Who did this? His voice was low, almost gentle. It didn't match his face. Leah's throat worked. My, husband. Something flickered in his eyes. Not sympathy. Something colder. Ethan Vance. It wasn't a question. Leah's breath caught. How? Don't talk! He shrugged out of his coat and draped it over her. The fabric was warm, expensive, smelled like cigarettes, and something darker. Something she couldn't name. You're not dying here. I can't. Leah's voice cracked. Please, just leave me. He tilted his head, studying her. You want to die in an alley? I want it to stop. It will. He slid one arm under her shoulders, the other under her knees. But not like this. Pain detonated through her entire body as he lifted her. Leia screamed, a thin, broken sound, and tried to fight, but her limbs wouldn't obey. He held her like she weighed nothing, like her struggling was just weather to be endured. "Stop," she gasped. "Stop, please." "No." He carried her toward the mouth of the alley. A black car waited there, engine running, a driver visible through the tinted windshield. The man, whoever he was, moved with absolute certainty, like he'd done this 1,000 times. "Who are you?" Leia managed. He looked down at her. Rain dripped from his hair onto her face. "Adrienne Romano." The name hit her like a fist. Everyone knew that name. You didn't live in this city without hearing it, usually in whispers, usually with a glance over the shoulder. Adrian Romano, the king of the underworld, the man who controlled half the city's criminal enterprises with an iron grip and a reputation for violence so cold it made Ethan's cruelty look like child's play. Leia's pulse spiked. No, I can't. You don't have a choice." He slid into the back of the car, still holding her, and the driver pulled away before she could even think about trying to escape. Not that she could. Her body was shutting down, piece by piece, and even breathing felt like dragging broken glass through her lungs. Adrian positioned her carefully across the seat, keeping his coat wrapped around her. His hands were steady, impersonal, like he was handling something fragile but ultimately replaceable. "Why?" Leia whispered. "Why what? Why help me?" His eyes met hers. They were dark gray, almost colorless in the dim light of the car, empty of warmth, but not, somehow, empty of intent. "I didn't help you," he said. "I took you." Then he reached up and pressed something against her neck. She felt a sharp sting, and the world went black. Leia woke to silence, not the silence of sleep, but the silence of a place built to keep sound from existing. No traffic, no rain, no voices, just thick, suffocating quiet. She opened her eyes. A ceiling, white, high, crown molding that probably cost more than her childhood home. A chandelier hung directly above her, crystal catching light from somewhere she couldn't see. She was in a bed, a massive bed, the kind with posts and heavy curtains tied back with silk ropes. Sheets so soft they felt like liquid against her skin. Her skin. Leia's breath hitched. She was wearing a nightgown, expensive, ivory-colored, definitely not hers. Her injuries had been cleaned and bandaged. She could feel the tightness of medical tape across her ribs, the dull throb of painkillers in her system. Someone had undressed her, treated her wounds, put her in this bed. Panic clawed up her throat. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her side, forcing a gasp out of her. She gritted her teeth and tried again, slower this time, until she was upright and braced against the headboard. The room around her was enormous. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows draped in heavy curtains, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. A door on the far wall, closed. Another door to her right, slightly ajar, revealing what looked like a bathroom done in black marble. Where the hell was she? Leia swung her legs over the side of the bed. Every movement sent fresh pain radiating through her body, but she forced herself to stand. Her legs shook. Her vision swam. She grabbed the bedpost and held on, breathing through her teeth. The door opened. A woman stepped in, middle-aged, gray hair pulled into a tight bun, wearing a simple black dress. She carried a tray with water and what looked like medication. "You shouldn't be standing," the woman said. Her voice was clipped, efficient. "Where am I?" Leia's voice came out hoarse. "Mr. Romano's estate." "I need to leave." "You can barely walk." "I don't care." The woman set the tray down on a side table and crossed her arms. "Mr. Romano said you'd try to run. He also said to tell you that if you attempt it, you'll collapse before you reach the stairs and hurt yourself worse. But if you insist, I won't stop you." Leia's grip on the bedpost tightened. "This is kidnapping. He saved your life." "I didn't ask him to." "No," the woman agreed. "You were too busy dying." The bluntness of it stole Leia's breath. The woman's expression softened, just slightly. "My name is Margaret. I've been instructed to see to your care. That means food, medication, and making sure you don't do anything stupid while you heal. If you cooperate, this will be easier for both of us." "And if I don't?" "Then you'll suffer more than necessary." Your choice. Leia wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, but her body was a wreck, and this woman was right. She could barely stand, let alone run. She lowered herself back onto the bed, hating how weak she felt, hating the helplessness that crawled over her like insects. Margaret picked up the tray and brought it closer. Pain medication, antibiotics, water. You need all three. Leia stared at the pills. How do I know they're safe? If Mr. Romano wanted you dead, you'd be dead. That logic was airtight in the worst possible way. Leia took the pills, swallowed them dry because her hands were shaking too much to hold the glass of water steady. Margaret waited, watched, then nodded. I'll bring food in an hour. Try to rest. She left, closing the door behind her with a soft click. Leia sat there, staring at the opulent cage she'd woken up in, and tried not to think about the fact that she'd traded one controlling man for another. Except Ethan had wanted to kill her. And Adrian Romano, she didn't know what he wanted. That terrified her more than anything. 3 days passed. Leia healed slowly. Her ribs still ached, but the swelling in her face had gone down. She could walk without feeling like her bones were splintering. Margaret came 3 times a day with food and medication, always efficient, always silent, unless Leia asked a direct question. She asked many. Where was she? Adrian's private estate, about 40 miles outside the city. Could she leave? No. When could she leave? When Mr. Romano decided, could she at least have her phone? Mr. Romano said no. That last one made Leia's blood boil. She spent the hours alone exploring the room. It was a gilded prison, beautiful, comfortable, utterly inescapable. The windows didn't open, the door locked from the outside. There was a television, shelves of books, even a small desk with expensive stationery. Everything she could want, except freedom. On the 4th day, the door opened and Adrian Romano walked in. Leia was sitting by the window, staring out at manicured gardens she couldn't reach. She turned at the sound of his footsteps and felt her spine stiffen automatically. He looked the same as the night he'd found her. Dark suit, perfect posture, eyes like a winter storm. He closed the door behind him and stood there, hands in his pockets, studying her with the same clinical detachment he'd shown in the alley. You're healing well, he said. Leia didn't answer. Margaret says you've been cooperative. What do you want from me? The words came out sharper than she intended. Adrian crossed to the chair opposite hers and sat, utterly relaxed. To talk. Then talk. Your husband tried to kill you. Leia flinched. I know. Do you know why? She looked away. Does it matter? Yes. He said I was a problem. You were leverage. Leia's gaze snapped back to him. What? Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Ethan Vance is drowning in debt. Legitimate business debt, the kind that looks clean on paper but is backed by people who don't accept failure. He needed a way to secure a deal with a syndicate that operates in the same circles I do. The Viscari family. I don't understand. He used you as bait, dumped you in that alley knowing I'd find you. Leia's stomach dropped. Why would he think that? Because I own that part of the city. Every move in that district gets reported to me. He wanted me to find you, wanted me to react. If I took you, it would give him justification to approach the Viscaris as a victim of my aggression. If I didn't, you'd die and he'd play the grieving husband while securing sympathy and leverage. The room spun. Leia gripped the armrests of her chair. He planned it, all of it. Yes. He was going to let me die to close a business deal. Adrian's expression didn't change. Yes. Rage and nausea warred inside her. Leia pressed a hand to her mouth, breathing hard through her nose. She'd known Ethan was cruel. She'd known he was capable of violence. But this level of calculation, of complete disregard for her humanity, it shredded something inside her she hadn't even known was still intact. Why are you telling me this? She whispered. Because you deserve to know what your life was worth to him. And what is it worth to you? Adrian tilted his head. That depends. On what? On whether you want to survive or just exist. Leia's breath caught. I don't belong in your world. You didn't belong in his either, but you stayed. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. He stood, buttoning his jacket. You can leave. I'll have a car take you anywhere you want to go. A hotel, a shelter, another city. I'll give you money, new identification, whatever you need to disappear. Hope flared in her chest. Really? Yes. He moved toward the door, then paused. But if you leave, Ethan will find you. He has resources, connections, and now he has the Viscaris watching his back. You'll spend the rest of your life running, and eventually, he'll catch you. The hope died. Or, Adrian continued, you stay here, under my protection. You heal, you get strong, and when you're ready, you decide what you want to do about the man who tried to erase you. Leia stared at him. Why would you protect me? Because Ethan made a mistake. He thought he could use you against me and walk away. I don't let mistakes go unpunished. So I'm still bait, just for you this time. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. No, you're a choice, and I'm giving you one. He opened the door. Wait. Leia stood, ignoring the protest of her ribs. If I stay, what do you get out of it? Adrian looked back at her. The satisfaction of watching Ethan Vance realize he threw away the only piece that mattered. Then he left. Leia stood there, trembling, staring at the open door. For the first time in 6 years, someone had given her a choice. She had no idea if she could trust it. But she knew with bone-deep certainty that she couldn't go back to being the woman who'd bled out in that alley. Whoever that woman became next, it would be on her terms, even if those terms were written in a devil's contract. The days blurred together. Leia chose to stay. Not because she trusted Adrian, she didn't, but because the alternative was worse. Running meant living in fear. Staying meant she had time to think, to plan, to figure out what the hell she was going to do with a life she'd been certain was over. Margaret became a constant presence. She brought meals, changed bandages, and slowly began to talk. Small things at first. The weather, the gardens. Then, carefully, pieces of her own story. She'd worked for Adrian for 12 years. Before that, she'd been married to a man who beat her until she couldn't recognize herself in the mirror. Mr. Romano gave me a way out, Margaret said one evening, her hand steady as she wrapped fresh gauze around Leia's ribs. He doesn't do it often, but when he does, it's absolute. No one touches what's his. Leia looked at her. I'm not his. Margaret's smile was small, sad. Not yet. The comment unsettled Leia for days. She saw Adrian infrequently. He'd appear without warning, sometimes in the morning, sometimes late at night. He never stayed long. He'd ask how she was healing, if she needed anything, and then he'd leave. His presence was like a storm passing overhead, brief, inevitable, impossible to ignore. On the 10th day, he brought someone with him. Leia was reading in the chair by the window when the door opened. Adrian entered, followed by a man in his 50s, carrying a medical bag. The man had kind eyes and graying hair, and he introduced himself as Dr. Castellano. I want a full examination, Adrian said. Make sure nothing was missed. The doctor nodded and set his bag down. Leia bristled. I'm fine. You were beaten within an inch of your life, Adrian said flatly. You're not fine. Let him check. She wanted to argue, but the truth was she didn't know if she was fine. The pain had become such a constant companion that she'd stopped questioning it. Dr. Castellano was gentle, thorough. He checked her ribs, her vision, her reflexes. He asked questions about dizziness, nausea, sleep. When he was done, he made notes in a small leather journal. 3 fractured ribs, all healing well, he said. Bruising consistent with blunt force trauma, also healing. No internal bleeding that I can detect. Your vision is clear, no signs of concussion. You're lucky, Mrs. Vance. Leia flinched at the name. Don't call me that, she said quietly. The doctor looked confused. Adrian cut in, his voice sharp. She's not using that name anymore. Dr. Castellano nodded quickly. Of course. My apologies. After he left, Leia turned to Adrian. I'm still legally married. Not for long. You can't just... I can. He adjusted his cufflinks, not looking at her. Ethan signed a deal with the Viscaris 3 days ago. He used the narrative that I kidnapped you to frame himself as the wronged party. The deal gives him access to their shipping routes in exchange for a percentage of his tech patents. Leia's chest tightened. He's moving on. He already has. There's a woman, younger, an assistant from his company. The betrayal shouldn't have stung, but it did. I want to see him, Leia said suddenly. Adrian's gaze snapped to hers. No. I need to see him. You need to stay away from him. Why? Leia stood, anger flaring. Because you said so? Because he'll use you again. He's already proven he'll do anything to maintain his image. I'm not afraid of him anymore. You should be. I'm not asking for permission. Leia's voice was steady, even though her hand shook. I need to look him in the eye and tell him I survived. Adrian stepped closer. He was tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. And then what? He laughs at you, tells you you're nothing, and you fall apart? Then I fall apart, but at least it'll be my choice. For a long moment, Adrian just looked at her. Something unreadable moved behind his eyes. You're not ready, he said finally. I'll never be ready, but I need to do it anyway. Adrian's jaw tightened. Then, unexpectedly, he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, held it up. It was a photo of Ethan smiling at a charity gala. His arm was around a young woman in a glittering dress. She looked radiant, happy. Leia stared at the image, her chest hollow. He doesn't care that you're alive, Adrian said quietly. He's already moved on. If you confront him, you give him power over you again. I don't care. I do. The words hung in the air between them. Leia's breath hitched. Why? Adrian lowered the phone. Because I didn't pull you out of that alley just to watch you walk back into his hands. Then what do you want from me? I want you to want more than revenge. Like what? He stepped back, putting distance between them. When he spoke again, his voice was controlled, distant. That's something you'll have to figure out yourself. He left. Leia stood there, staring at the closed door, her heart pounding. For the first time since waking up here, she realized something that terrified her more than Ethan, more than Adrian, more than anything. She didn't know who she was without fear. And whoever she was becoming, it wasn't the woman who'd bled out in that alley. It was someone else entirely. Someone she wasn't sure she recognized yet. But someone who, for the first time in 6 years, wanted to fight. Leia started training the next morning, not because anyone asked her to, because she woke up at dawn with restless energy crawling under her skin and the realization that lying in bed staring at the ceiling was driving her insane. She needed to move, needed to do something with the anger that had been building in her chest since Adrian had shown her that photo of Ethan with his new prize. She found the gym by accident, wandered down a hallway she hadn't explored yet, and pushed through a set of double doors into a space that could have hosted a professional boxing match. Punching bags hung from reinforced ceiling mounts. Free weights lined one wall. Mats covered half the floor. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors reflected everything back at her, including the woman she barely recognized. Thin, bruised, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. She walked to the nearest punching bag and touched it. The leather was worn smooth from use. You'll hurt yourself. Leia spun. A man stood in the doorway, early 30s, built like he'd been assembled from spare parts and violence. Dark skin, shaved head, a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. He wore a tank top and gym pants, arms crossed over his chest. Who are you? Leia asked. Leia. Marcus. He pushed off the doorframe and walked closer. I run security here. Also train Mr. Romano when he needs it. I'm just looking around. Sure. Marcus stopped a few feet away, eyes assessing. But if you hit that bag with your ribs still healing, you're going to undo 3 weeks of recovery in about 5 seconds. Leia's jaw tightened. I need to do something. Then stretch, walk, don't punch things. I wasn't asking for permission. Something that might have been amusement flickered across Marcus's face. You got fight in you. Good. But you got to be smart about it. I'm tired of being smart. Being smart got me... She stopped, swallowed hard. Marcus nodded slowly. Got you beaten half to death, yeah. I know. Everyone here knows, don't they? Mr. Romano doesn't keep secrets from his people. Not about things that matter. Leia looked away. The vulnerability of it, of being a story these strangers knew, made her skin crawl. Marcus moved to one of the mats and dropped into a stretch. Come here. What? You want to do something useful with that anger? Come here. I'll teach you how to fall without breaking yourself. I don't need... Yeah, you do. He looked up at her, expression serious. Because right now you're all edges and no foundation. Someone pushes you, you'll shatter. I can help with that. If you let me. Leia hesitated. Then slowly she walked over. For the next hour, Marcus put her through the most basic drills she'd ever experienced. How to tuck her chin when she fell. How to roll with momentum instead of fighting it. How to get back up without exposing her back. Every movement was precise, controlled, stripped of everything except function. By the end, Leia was sweating and her ribs ached, but it was a different kind of pain, one she'd chosen. Tomorrow, Marcus said as she headed for the door. Same time. We'll work on your stance. Leia paused. Why are you helping me? Because Mr. Romano asked me to, and because you remind me of someone. Who? Me. Before I learned how to fight back. Something in his voice made Leia look at him differently. She saw the scars, the way he held himself, not like a man who'd always been dangerous, but like someone who'd had to become dangerous to survive. Thank you, she said quietly. Marcus just nodded. Marta. Adrian watched from the security room. The monitors showed every angle of the gym, Leia moving across the mats with Marcus, falling, getting up, falling again. Her face was set with determination that bordered on desperation. She's pushing too hard, Dante said from behind him. Adrian didn't turn. Dante Morelli was his second, had been for 8 years. A man who understood that loyalty wasn't given, it was earned through blood and silence. He stood with his arms crossed, watching the same monitors. She needs an outlet, Adrian said. She needs rest. She's had rest. Now she needs purpose. Dante made a sound that might have been agreement or skepticism, hard to tell with him. The Viscaris are asking questions. Adrian's jaw tightened. About her? About why you pulled a nobody out of an alley and brought her into your home. They're wondering if she's leverage. Let them wonder. They're also wondering why you haven't responded to Ethan Vance's accusations. He's been making noise, says you abducted his wife, that he wants her back safely. He doesn't want her. He wants an excuse to justify whatever move he's planning next. So give him one. Send her back, cut the loose end. Adrian finally looked at Dante. No, she's a complication. She's under my protection. Why? Dante stepped closer, lowering his voice. You don't do this. You don't bring people into your home. You don't protect strangers. What's different about her? Adrian turned back to the monitors. On screen, Leia was getting up from another fall, wiping sweat from her face. There was something in the way she moved, broken but refusing to stay down, that made his chest feel tight. Ethan Vance made a mistake, Adrian said. He thought he could use her and walk away. I'm correcting that mistake. By making her your problem? By making her his. Dante was quiet for a moment. Then, you're playing a long game. I'm always playing a long game. And what happens when she figures out you're using her the same way he did? Adrian's hand curled into a fist on the desk. I'm not using her. Then what are you doing? He didn't have an answer for that. 2 weeks in, Leia started asking questions. She cornered Margaret in the hallway one afternoon, catching her between the kitchen and the laundry room. How long have you worked for him? Leia asked. Margaret paused, laundry basket balanced on her hip. 12 years. And you're okay with what he does? What he does? Don't play dumb. I know who he is. What he is. Margaret set the basket down and straightened, meeting Leia's gaze. Mr. Romano gave me a life when I had nothing. He pays well. He treats his people with respect, and he doesn't tolerate disloyalty. What he does outside these walls isn't my business. He's a criminal. So was your husband. At least Mr. Romano is honest about it. The words hit like a slap. Leia's voice dropped. Ethan Vance built his empire on insider trading, bribery, and blackmail. He just wore better suits while he did it. Margaret picked up the basket again. You want to judge Mr. Romano? Fine. But don't pretend the man who tried to kill you was any better just because he had a clean reputation. She walked away, leaving Leia standing in the hallway with her thoughts in pieces. That night, Leia couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Margaret's words looping through her mind. She'd known Ethan was ruthless in business, but she'd always told herself it was different, that he was just aggressive, competitive, playing by the rules of his world, except he'd beaten her and left her to die. There were no rules that made that acceptable, Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and left her room. The mansion was quiet, most of the staff gone for the night. She wandered through hallways lined with art she didn't recognize, past rooms she'd never entered, until she found herself in front of a set of heavy oak doors. She pushed one open. The room beyond was a library, massive, 2 stories tall, with a spiraling staircase that led to a second level of shelves. Leather chairs sat near a fireplace that wasn't lit. Books lined every surface, old and new, organized in a way that suggested someone actually read them. Leia stepped inside, trailing her fingers along the spines. Can't sleep? She spun. Adrian sat in one of the chairs near the fireplace, half hidden in shadow. He had a glass of whiskey in one hand, a book in the other. He looked tired, the kind of tired that came from carrying weight no one else could see. "I didn't know anyone was here," Leia said. "I come here when I need to think." He closed the book and set it aside. "You're welcome to stay." Leia hesitated, then moved closer. She sat in the chair opposite his, keeping distance between them. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Leia said, "Margaret told me about Ethan, about what he really did. And I feel stupid for not seeing it." "You saw what he let you see. That's what men like him do. They control the narrative." "Is that what you do?" Adrian's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Yes." "Then how do I know you're not doing the same thing to me?" "You don't." The honesty of it caught her off guard. Adrian leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I'm not going to lie to you, Leia. I brought you here because Ethan made a move against me by using you. Keeping you here keeps him off balance. That's strategy. But it's also true that I didn't leave you in that alley because I don't let people die on my streets. So I'm both a strategy and a charity case. You're a person who deserves better than what you got." Leia's throat tightened. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." "Like what?" "Like you're still fighting even though you have every reason to quit. Like you'd rather train in a gym with broken ribs than sit still and feel sorry for yourself. Like you're terrified of being controlled, but you're even more terrified of being alone." Leia's breath caught. "Stop." "Why? Because I'm right?" "Because you don't get to psychoanalyze me like I'm some project." Adrian sat back, studying her. "You're not a project. You're a complication I didn't plan for and don't know what to do with." "Then let me leave." "No." "Why not?" "Because the second you walk out that door, Ethan will come for you, and next time I won't be there to stop it." "Maybe I don't need you to stop it." "You think you can fight him alone?" "I don't know, but I can't stay here forever." "Why not?" The question hung in the air. Leia stood abruptly. "Because I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's. And I'm tired of being treated like property." She turned to leave. "Leia." She stopped but didn't look back. "I'm not trying to own you," Adrian said quietly. "I'm trying to keep you alive. Maybe those are the same thing in your world." She left before he could respond. Kochit. The confrontation came 3 days later. Leia was in the gym, working through a series of defensive drills with Marcus, when one of Adrian's men appeared in the doorway. Young guy, nervous energy. He looked at Marcus. "Boss wants to see her. Now." Marcus frowned. "In the middle of now?" Leia's stomach dropped. She followed the man through the mansion, past rooms she recognized and some she didn't, until they reached a set of double doors she'd never seen open. The man knocked once, then pushed the doors wide. Inside was an office, sleek, modern, dominated by a massive desk and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the estate grounds. Adrian stood behind the desk, his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear. 2 other men flanked him, Dante, who she recognized from brief hallway passings, and someone else she didn't know. "I don't care what his timeline is," Adrian was saying into the phone. "He moves when I say he moves. If he has a problem with that, he can take it up with me directly." He ended the call and turned. His eyes locked on Leia. "Close the door," he said. She did. Adrian moved around the desk, his expression unreadable. "How much do you know about Ethan's business dealings?" Leia blinked. "What?" "His company, Vance Technologies. How much do you know about what he actually does there?" He's a CEO, tech patents, government contracts." "Did he ever mention the Colaris project?" The name sent a chill down her spine. Once, maybe twice, he said it was classified. It is, and it's also the reason the Viscaris are interested in him. Adrian gestured to Dante, who slid a folder across the desk. Leia opened it. Inside were documents, contracts, schematics, emails. Most of it was technical jargon she didn't understand, but a few words jumped out. Surveillance, military applications, offshore accounts. Ethan's been selling restricted technology to private buyers, Adrian said, using his government contracts as a front. The Viscaras broker the deals. They take a cut, he gets rich, everyone pretends it's legal. Leia's hands shook as she turned the pages. How do you know this? Because 3 months ago, one of his buyers approached me to handle transport. I turned it down. Then you showed up in that alley and I started digging. Why? Because men like Ethan don't try to kill their wives unless they're desperate. I wanted to know what he was desperate about. Leia looked up. And this is it? He tried to kill me over illegal arms deals? He tried to kill you because you're a liability. You're his wife. If any of this comes out, you could testify against him. Easier to make you disappear. The room spun. Leia sat down hard in the nearest chair, the folder slipping from her hands. All those years, all those dinners and charity events and smiling for cameras. And underneath it all, Ethan had been, I didn't know, she whispered. I believe you, Adrian said. What are you going to do with this information? That depends on you. Leia's head snapped up. On me? If I release this, Ethan goes down. But so does everyone connected to him. That includes people in the government who've been taking his money. It'll be bloody and complicated, and you'll be dragged into it. I don't care. You should, because the Viscaris won't let this slide. They'll come after anyone who threatens their operation. That includes you. Leia's chest tightened. So what? I just let him get away with it? No. You decide how you want this to end. I want him to pay. For what? The beating? The betrayal? The illegal deals? Adrian stepped closer. Be specific. Because how you answer that question determines what happens next. Leia stood, her whole body trembling. I want him to feel what I felt. I want him to lose everything the way I did. Then we do this my way. Which is? Controlled demolition. We expose him piece by piece, make sure the right people see the right information at the right time. He loses his contracts, his reputation, his freedom, and the Viscaris can't tie it back to us. How long will that take? Months? Maybe longer. And what do I do in the meantime? Adrian's gaze held hers. You get stronger. You learn how to fight. And when the time comes, you walk into a courtroom and you bury him. Leia wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, but underneath the rage was something else. A cold, sharp clarity. I want to see him first, she said. No. I need to. Leia, I need to look him in the eye and let him know I'm coming for him. Adrian's jaw tightened. That's a mistake. It's my mistake to make. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Dante spoke up. She's got a point, boss. If Ethan thinks she's gone quiet, he'll get comfortable. But if she shows up, makes noise, it'll force his hand. It'll also paint a target on her back, Adrian snapped. The target's already there, Leia said. At least this way, I'm the one holding the gun. Adrian looked at her like he was seeing someone else entirely. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Set up a meeting, he said. Ethan Vance, neutral location, tomorrow. He ended the call and looked at Leia. You want to face him? Fine, but you do it on my terms, and you don't go alone. The next evening, Leia sat in the back of Adrian's car, dressed in clothes she barely recognized as her own. Margaret had brought them, a sleek black dress, heels, hair and makeup done in a way that made her look polished and dangerous. She looked like the woman Ethan had married, except her eyes were different now. Adrian sat beside her, silent. Dante drove. 2 more cars followed behind them, carrying security Leia couldn't see but knew was there. He's meeting us at a restaurant downtown, Adrian said. Public, cameras everywhere. He won't try anything. And if he does? Then he doesn't leave the building. Leia's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, willing them to stop. You don't have to do this. Adrian said quietly. Yes, I do. The restaurant was upscale. White tablecloths, dim lighting, the kind of place Ethan loved because it made him feel important. They were shown to a private room in the back, away from other diners. Ethan was already there. He sat at the head of the table, perfectly composed in a tailored suit, a glass of wine in his hand. When Laya walked in, his expression didn't change. Not surprise, not guilt, just mild curiosity, like she was a puzzle he'd already solved. "Laya," he said, "you're looking well." Her throat closed up. Adrian's hand touched the small of her back, brief, grounding. Then he moved to stand beside the door, giving her space but making his presence known. Laya walked to the table, stood across from Ethan. "I wanted to see you," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Clearly." Ethan took a sip of wine. "Though I have to say, I'm surprised. I assumed you'd have the decency to stay gone. You tried to kill me. I did what was necessary." The casual admission stole her breath. Ethan set his glass down. "You were becoming a problem, Laya. Asking questions, making yourself visible. I couldn't afford that. So you beat me and left me in an alley. I made a business decision. I was your wife. You were an asset that had outlived its usefulness." Laya's nails dug into her palms. "And now? Now you're someone else's problem." Ethan glanced at Adrian. "I assume that's why you're here, to remind me that you've claimed her." Adrian didn't respond. Ethan smiled. "It's a smart move, I'll give you that. Taking my wife puts you in a position of moral high ground with the Viscaris. Makes you look like a protector instead of a predator." "I'm not here to discuss strategy," Adrian said. "No, you're here to watch her fall apart." Ethan looked back at Laya. "That's what you do, isn't it? You break down, you cry. You beg for things to go back to how they were." Laya's chest heaved, but she didn't cry. "I'm not going back," she said. "Good, because there's nothing to go back to. I've moved on. You should do the same." "I'm going to destroy you." Ethan laughed, a short, sharp sound. "With what? You have nothing. No money, no connections, no proof of anything. You're just a sad, broken woman living in another man's house." Laya leaned forward, hands braced on the table. "I have everything I need," she said. "I have the truth. I have time. And I have nothing left to lose." For the first time, something flickered in Ethan's eyes. Not fear, but acknowledgement. "Be careful, Laya," he said softly. "You're playing a game you don't understand." "Then teach me." Ethan stood, buttoned his jacket. This was a waste of time. He walked to the door, paused beside Adrian. "She'll be dead within a month," Ethan said. "The Viscaris don't tolerate loose ends, and neither do I." Then he left. The room felt like it was collapsing. Laya stayed at the table, staring at the empty chair, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Adrian crossed to her. Gently, he took her arm. "We're leaving." She didn't resist. In the car, she finally let herself shake. Her whole body trembled, adrenaline crashing through her system. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to breathe. "You did well," Adrian said. "I didn't do anything." "You faced him. That's more than most people could do." Laya dropped her hands. "He's going to come after me." "Yes." "And you're okay with that?" Adrian looked at her. "No, but it means he's scared, and scared men make mistakes." "What if I'm the mistake?" "You're not." "How do you know?" "Because you're still standing." Laya leaned back against the seat, exhausted. Outside, the city blurred past, lights and shadows. People living lives that didn't involve criminal empires and ex-husbands who treated murder like a business transaction. She'd crossed a line tonight. There was no going back now. And somewhere in the dark, Ethan Vance was making his next move. The call came at 3 a.m. Laya was awake, had been for hours, staring at the ceiling and replaying the restaurant scene over and over. Ethan's face, his voice, the way he'd looked at her like she was nothing. When her door crashed open, she bolted upright, heart slamming against her ribs. Adrian stood in the doorway, fully dressed, phone in hand. His face was carved from stone. Get dressed, he said. Now. What happened? The Viscars just hit one of my shipments, killed 4 of my men. His voice was flat, controlled in a way that made the hair on her neck stand up. They left a message. What message? Your name. The room tilted. Leia scrambled out of bed, grabbing clothes from the chair where she'd left them. Her hands shook so badly she could barely pull on her jeans. They know I'm here, she said. They've always known. Now they're making it clear that you're a target. Because of the restaurant. Because I saw Ethan. Because Ethan told them you're a threat. Adrian stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. He's escalating, forcing my hand. Leia's throat closed. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. This isn't your fault. His voice cut through her panic like a blade. This is strategy. He's trying to make you my weakness. Aren't I? Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. Downstairs, the mansion was chaos. Men moved through hallways with weapons she'd only seen in movies. Dante was barking orders into his phone. Margaret appeared with a coat, pressing it into Leia's hands. Where are we going? Leia asked. Somewhere safer, Adrian said, until I can neutralize this. They were in the car within minutes. Adrian, Leia, Dante, and 2 others she didn't recognize. The convoy moved fast through dark streets, away from the estate and toward the city. Leia's pulse hammered in her ears. What does neutralize mean? It means I'm going to have a conversation with the Viscaras, Adrian said, and they're going to understand that you're off limits. And if they don't agree, then it becomes a war. Dante glanced back from the front seat. We're not equipped for a war right now, boss, not with them. I know. So what's the play? Adrian stared out the window, his expression unreadable. We give them something they want more than her. Like what? Ethan Vance. Leia's breath caught. You're going to trade him? I'm going to offer him. Whether they take the deal depends on how much they value their partnership with him versus avoiding a bloodbath with me. And if they choose him? Adrian finally looked at her. Then we disappear, all of us, and we start over somewhere they can't reach. The weight of it settled over Leia like a shroud. All of this, the men dead, the threat hanging over them, the possibility of running, all because she'd wanted to face Ethan, because she'd needed to prove she wasn't afraid. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be. You did what you needed to do. Adrian's voice softened just slightly. Now let me do what I need to do. The safe house was a penthouse in the heart of the city. Glass and steel, anonymous, the kind of place that didn't exist on any official records. Adrian's men swept it room by room while Leia stood in the living area, arms wrapped around herself. Dante approached Adrian, voice low. The Viscaris want a meeting. Tonight. Where? The docks. Warehouse district. Their territory. That's a trap. Probably. But if we don't show, they'll take it as a declaration. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, the first crack in his composure Leia had seen. How many men do we have available? 8 on site. Another 12 we can pull in within the hour. Against how many of theirs? Unknown, but if they're smart, they'll bring enough to make a point. Leia stepped forward. Don't go. Both men looked at her. If it's a trap, you can't walk into it, she said. Send someone else. Send a message. Something. If I don't go personally, it's an insult, Adrian said. And insults lead to body counts. So does walking into an ambush. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You can let me go. The room went silent. Adrian's eyes narrowed. What? Let me go to them. Tell them I'm turning myself in. That I'm not worth a war. Absolutely not. It's the only way to... I said no. His voice was sharp enough to cut. You think they'll just take you and call it even? They'll use you to get to me, then kill you when you're no longer useful. Then what's your plan? Because right now it sounds like you're going to get yourself killed trying to protect me. Adrian crossed to her in 3 strides, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself. Not for me. Not for anyone. Why not? You barely know me. Because you deserve better than being another casualty in someone else's war. Leia's chest heaved. And what do you deserve? That's not the question. Yes, it is. You keep acting like my life matters more than yours, But you won't tell me why. For a moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then he stepped back, putting distance between them. Because you still have a chance, he said quietly, to be someone other than what this world made you. I don't. Before Leia could respond, his phone rang. He answered it, listened, and his face went ashen. When? He demanded. A pause. Are you sure? He ended the call. Dante stepped forward. What is it? Ethan's dead. The words hung in the air like smoke. Leia's knees buckled. She grabbed the back of a chair to stay upright. What? He was found an hour ago in his penthouse. Single gunshot to the head, staged to look like suicide. The Viscaris, Dante said. Has to be. They're cleaning house. Adrian's mind was already working. She could see it. If Ethan's dead, they don't need the deal anymore, which means they're coming after us directly. Why would they kill him? Leia's voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. He was their partner, because dead men can't testify. And with Ethan gone, all the evidence of their operation dies with him. Adrian turned to Dante. Pull everyone back. We're not going to that meeting. If we don't show ye... They're not planning to negotiate. They're planning to end this. Leia sank into the chair. Ethan was dead. The man who'd tried to kill her, who'd beaten her and left her bleeding, who'd looked at her across a restaurant table and told her she was nothing, he was gone. She should have felt something. Relief, vindication, closure. Instead, she felt hollow. Leia. She looked up. Adrian was watching her. Are you okay? I don't know. Her voice cracked. I wanted him to pay, but not like this. I wanted him to face what he did. I wanted justice. Yes, justice doesn't always look the way we want it to. This isn't justice. This is just more violence. Adrian crouched in front of her, bringing himself to her level. I know, but it's the world we're in. I hate it. So do I. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the exhaustion, the weight, the cracks in the armor he wore so carefully. How do you live like this? She whispered. By remembering what I'm fighting for. And what's that? It used to be power, control, making sure no one could ever hurt me again. He paused. Now I'm not sure. Before Leia could respond, the windows exploded inward. Glass shattered in 1,000 directions. Leia hit the floor, Adrian's body covering hers, as gunfire tore through the penthouse. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the weight of him pressing her into the carpet and the sound of bullets punching through walls. Someone was screaming. Maybe her. Move! Adrian hauled her up, half carrying her toward the back hallway. Dante and the others returned fire, the noise deafening. They made it to a bedroom. Adrian shoved her inside, slamming the door. Stay down, he ordered. What's happening? They found us. He pulled a gun from the waistband of his pants, checked the magazine. Dante will get you out through the service elevator. Don't stop. Don't look back. What about you? I'm buying you time. No. Leia grabbed his arm. You can't. This isn't a debate. He pulled free, moving toward the door. If I don't make it out, Dante knows what to do. Adrian, he looked back at her one last time. Something in his expression made her chest crack open. I'm sorry, he said. For all of this. Then he was gone. The gunfire intensified. Leia pressed herself against the wall, hands over her ears, trying to block out the sound. Seconds stretched into hours. Every breath felt like it might be her last. The door burst open. Dante stood there, blood streaking down his face from a cut above his eye. We're leaving. Now. He grabbed her hand and pulled her into the chaos. Bodies on the floor. She didn't look at their faces. Smoke everywhere. The acrid smell of gunpowder. They reached the service elevator. Dante hit the button, gun raised, covering the hallway. Where's Adrian? Leia demanded. Buying us time. We can't leave him. We don't have a choice. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Leia pulled away from Dante. I'm not leaving without him. He gave me an order. I don't care. She ran back into the penthouse. Smoke stung her eyes. She couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Shapes moved in the haze, bodies, furniture. She couldn't tell. Gunfire came in short bursts now, sporadic. Adrian, she screamed. No answer. She rounded a corner and nearly tripped over him. He was on the floor, back against the wall, blood soaking through his shirt just below his ribs. His gun lay beside him, empty. His face was pale, slick with sweat. Leia dropped to her knees. "Oh, God! Oh, God!" "I told you to leave," he said. His voice was weak, strained. "Shut up." She pressed her hands against the wound. Blood pulsed between her fingers, hot and relentless. "Dante, I need help!" Footsteps behind her. Dante appeared, swearing viciously. "We have to move him," Leia said. "He won't make it." "Will, help me." Together, they got Adrian to his feet. He sagged between them, barely conscious. They half carried, half dragged him to the elevator. The doors were still open. They stumbled inside. Dante hit the button for the parking garage. As the doors closed, Leia heard more gunfire, shouting, then silence. The elevator descended. Adrian's head lolled against her shoulder. His breathing was shallow, ragged. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please, stay with me." His eyes opened just slightly. "You should have left." "I don't leave people behind." "You barely know me." "I know enough." The elevator opened. A car was waiting, one of Adrian's men at the wheel. They got Adrian into the back seat. Leia climbed in beside him, keeping pressure on the wound even though blood was everywhere now. Dante got in front. "Drive. Don't stop for anything." The car peeled out of the garage. Leia looked down at Adrian. His eyes were closed. His chest rose and fell in uneven jerks. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house outside the city. We have a doctor there." "Will he make it?" Dante didn't answer. Leia pressed harder on the wound, as if she could hold Adrian's life in place through sheer force of will. Her hands were slick with his blood. Her heart was a drum beating out a rhythm that sounded like please, please, please. "Don't you dare die," she told him. "You don't get to save me just to die. You hear me? You don't get to—" Her voice broke. Adrian's hand found hers, weak, trembling. "Leia, don't talk. Save your strength. Listen." He coughed and blood flecked his lips. "If I don't, you will. Listen." His grip tightened, just barely. "Dante has instructions, money, new identity. You disappear, you live. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Why? Why does it matter so much to you what happens to me?" His eyes opened. Even through the pain, they were sharp, clear. "Because you're the only thing I've done right in 10 years, he said. Then his hand went slack. "Adrian!" Leia shook him. "Adrian, no, stay with me, please." "He's unconscious," Dante said from the front. "Not dead. Not yet." "How long until we get there?" 20 minutes. 20 minutes felt like an eternity. Leia kept pressure on the wound, kept whispering things she wasn't sure he could hear, kept praying to anything that might be listening that this man, this violent, complicated, impossible man, wouldn't die in her arms. Because somewhere in the chaos of the last few weeks, he'd stopped being just her captor or her protector. He'd become the only person who saw her as more than a victim, and she wasn't ready to lose that. The safe house was a cabin buried in the woods, miles from anywhere. The doctor was already there, a woman in her 60s with steady hands and eyes that had seen too much. They carried Adrian inside. Leia tried to follow, but the doctor stopped her. "You'll just be in the way. You need to let me work." The door closed in her face. Leia stood in the hallway, shaking. Her hands were covered in blood. Her clothes were soaked with it. She couldn't stop seeing Adrian's face, pale and slack, his breath rattling in his chest. Dante appeared beside her, holding out a towel. "Clean yourself up," he said quietly. Leia took it, scrubbed at her hands mechanically, watching the blood turn the white towel red. "This is my fault," she said. "No, it's not. If I hadn't gone to see Ethan, then the Viscaris would have found another excuse. This has been building for months. He's going to die because of me." Dante grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "He's going to live because he's too stubborn to die. And when he wakes up, he's going to need you to be stronger than this. I don't know how. You figure it out. That's what survivors do." He let her go and walked away. Leia sank to the floor, back against the wall, towel clutched in her hands. Hours passed. The sun came up. The doctor worked behind the closed door. and Leia waited, every minute feeling like her soul was being stretched thinner and thinner. Finally, the door opened. The doctor stepped out, wiping her hands on a cloth. Blood stained her scrubs. "He's stable," she said. "For now." Leia's legs almost gave out. "Can I see him?" "He's unconscious. Will be for a while, but yes." The room was small, dim. Adrian lay on a narrow bed, bare-chested, bandages wrapped tight around his torso. An IV ran into his arm. His face was too pale, his breathing too shallow. But he was alive. Leia pulled a chair close and sat, took his hand carefully, afraid of hurting him. "You're an idiot," she whispered. "You know that? Walking into a firefight like you're bulletproof. You're not. You're just—" Her voice broke. She pressed her forehead to his hand, tears streaming down her face. "You're just a man, and I need you to wake up. I need you to—" She couldn't finish. Outside, Dante was on the phone, coordinating with what was left of Adrian's people. The Viscaras had made their move. Ethan was dead. The city was about to erupt into a war that would consume everyone in its path. And Leia, sitting in a cabin in the middle of nowhere with a man who might not wake up, realized something that terrified her more than any of it. She'd spent 6 years as Ethan's wife, and she'd never once felt for him what she felt for Adrian Romano. Not love. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But something raw and fierce and utterly unbreakable. The kind of thing that made you run back into a burning building. The kind of thing that made you hold a stranger's hand and beg the universe not to take him. The kind of thing that changed you so completely you could never go back to who you were before. Adrian's fingers twitched in her grip. Leia's breath caught. "Adrian?" His eyes opened, just barely, unfocused, searching. "You're okay," she said quickly. "You're going to be okay." His lips moved. She leaned closer. "Told you to leave," he whispered. "And I told you I don't leave people behind." The ghost of a smile touched his mouth. Then his eyes closed again, and he slipped back under. But he was alive. And for now, that was enough. Dante appeared in the doorway. His expression was grim. "We have a problem," he said. Leia looked up. "What now?" "The Viscaris put a price on both your heads. 2 million each. Every crew in the city knows your targets. So what do? We have 2 choices. We run, leave the country, start over somewhere they can't reach, or what?" Dante's jaw tightened. "Or we end this, permanently." Leia looked down at Adrian, at the man who'd pulled her out of an alley and given her a reason to keep fighting. "How?" she asked. "We go to war. We hit the Viscaras before they hit us again. We take out their leadership, destroy their operations, make it so costly to come after us that they'd rather negotiate." "That's suicide." "Maybe. But it's the only way you both survive." Leia's hands curled into fists. She thought about Ethan, dead in his penthouse, about the men who died in the firefight, about Adrian, bleeding out in her arms, about the girl she'd been 6 years ago, before Ethan Vance had taught her that survival meant becoming small. She wasn't that girl anymore. "Tell me what you need me to do," she said. Dante's eyes widened, just slightly. "You're not trained for this." "Then train me." "Leia, I'm not sitting here waiting to die. If we're going to war, I'm going with you." Adrian would never allow it. "Adrian's unconscious, and by the time he wakes up, it'll be too late to stop me." Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right," he said. "But if you're coming, you follow orders. No hesitation, no questions. You do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you. Understood?" "Understood." "Good. We move in 48 hours. He left. Leia sat with Adrian, her hand still holding his. 48 hours. 2 days to become someone capable of walking into hell. 2 days to figure out if she had it in her to kill. Because that's what this was now. Not justice, not revenge. War. And in war, you didn't get to stay clean. You just tried to stay alive. 48 hours became 47, then 36, then 24. Leia didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the penthouse. Glass exploding, Adrian falling, blood spreading across expensive carpet like spilled wine. Instead, she trained. Dante woke her before dawn on the first day, dragged her outside into air so cold it burned her lungs, and put a gun in her hands. "Ever fired one of these?" he asked. "No." "Good. Then you won't have bad habits to break." He positioned himself behind her, adjusting her grip. Feet shoulder width, elbows locked but not stiff. Look down the sight, not at the target. Squeeze the trigger, don't pull. The gun was heavier than she'd expected. Cold, impersonal. "What am I shooting at?" Dante pointed to a row of bottles lined up on a fence 50 feet away. "Those, until you hit more than you miss." It took her 19 rounds to hit the first bottle. Her hand shook so badly she could barely reload. The recoil bruised her palms. Her ears rang despite the protection Dante had given her. But when that first bottle shattered, something inside her shifted. "Again," Dante said. She fired until her arms ached, until the sun climbed over the trees, until she could hit 3 bottles in a row without hesitation. "Better," Dante said. He took the gun from her, checked it with practiced efficiency. "But shooting targets isn't the same as shooting people." "I know." "Do you? Because when you're in that room and someone's pointing a gun at you, your body's going to freeze. Every instinct you have is going to scream at you to run. You have to fight through that." "How?" "By deciding right now that you're willing to kill. Not in theory, not maybe. You decide here that when the moment comes, you pull the trigger." Leia's stomach twisted. "And if I can't? Then you stay here. You don't get to come halfway." She looked at the shattered glass glittering in the morning light. Thought about Ethan, dead in his penthouse. About the men who'd died protecting her. About Adrian, still unconscious in the cabin, his chest rising and falling in shallow, fragile breaths. "I can do it," she said. "Saying it isn't enough." "I know." She met his gaze. "But I mean it." Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded and handed the gun back. "Load it. We're going again." By the second day, Leia could field strip the pistol in under a minute, load a magazine without looking, and hit a target at 75 feet more often than she missed. Her body ached everywhere. Bruises from the recoil, blisters on her palms, muscles screaming from holding positions Dante had drilled into her until they became automatic. But she was faster now, steadier. Dante didn't praise her. He just pushed harder. Didn't. "Shooting's only half of it," he said that afternoon. They were in the cabin's basement, a concrete space that smelled like mildew and gun oil. "You need to know how to move, how to clear a room, how to stay alive when everything goes wrong." He walked her through scenarios, door breaches, cover positions, how to move with a team without getting in their way or getting shot, how to recognize the difference between suppressive fire and an actual attempt to kill you. "When we go in," he said, "you stay behind me. You watch the corners I can't watch. If someone comes at you, you don't think. You shoot. What if I hit you by mistake? Then I die. That's the risk we all take." Leia's throat tightened. "I don't want to be the reason someone else dies." "You won't be. You'll be the reason we succeed." Dante's expression softened, just slightly. "Adrian took a bullet because he was protecting you. If we do this right, no one else has to. And if we don't, then we all die together, but at least we die fighting." That night, Leia sat with Adrian again. The doctor had been in earlier, changing his bandages and checking his vitals. She'd reported improvement. His fever was down, his breathing stronger. But he still hadn't woken. Still lay there pale and silent, hooked to machines that beeped rhythmically in the dark. Leia took his hand. It was warmer now than it had been. "I'm going with them tomorrow," she said quietly. "I know you'd hate it. I know you'd tell me to stay here, stay safe. But I can't." His fingers twitched in her grip. She leaned closer. "I spent 6 years letting someone else control my life. I'm not doing that anymore, even if it scares me, even if I fail." His eyes moved beneath his eyelids like he was dreaming. "Come back to me," she whispered. "After this is done. Wake up and yell at me for being reckless. I don't care, just come back." She pressed her lips to his knuckles, then stood and walked out. Dante was waiting in the hallway. "You ready?" "No?" "Good, means you're smart enough to know what we're walking into." He handed her a vest, Kevlar, heavy, smelling like sweat and cordite. "Put this on. We leave in an hour." The plan was simple in the way that doomed plans always were. The Viscaris operated out of a compound on the industrial edge of the city, shipping warehouses converted into a fortress. High walls, limited entry points, armed guards rotated every 6 hours. Getting in would be hard. Getting out alive would be nearly impossible. But Dante had mapped it, had contacts inside who'd fed him schedules, weak points, the location of the command center where the Viscari family held their meetings. "We go in during shift change," he explained as they drove through the pre-dawn dark. "Guards are tired, distracted. We hit the command center, take out the leadership, and we're gone before they can organize a response." "How many of them?" Leia asked. She sat in the back of the van, surrounded by Dante's remaining men, 6 in total, all armed like they were invading a small country. "At least 20, maybe more. And there's 7 of us. 8, counting you." "I don't count." One of the men, Lopez, stocky with a burn scar across his neck, grinned. "You will if you shoot straight." The others laughed, a brief moment of gallows humor that died quickly. Leia checked her gun for the 100th time, magazine full, safety on. She'd done this 1,000 times in practice. Now she just had to do it when people were shooting back. The compound loomed ahead, dark against the lightening sky. Dante parked the van 3 blocks away. They approached on foot, moving through alleys and side streets until they reached the perimeter wall. Leia's heart was a drum in her chest. Her hands were slick with sweat inside her gloves. Dante raised a fist. Everyone stopped. He pointed to Lopez and another man, Garcia. They moved forward, bolt cutters in hand, and made short work of the chain-link fence. The metal fell away with barely a whisper. They slipped through. Inside the compound was a maze of shipping containers and prefab buildings. Sodium lights cast everything in sickly orange. Leia could hear voices somewhere ahead, guards talking, laughing. Dante led them along the shadows, using the containers for cover. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. Every sound was too loud. They reached the command center, a 2-story building with reinforced doors and security cameras sweeping the entrance. Dante signaled. 2 of his men moved forward, planted charges on the hinges. Everyone pulled back. The explosion was muted, controlled. But the doors blew inward, and chaos erupted. Gunfire, shouting. Dante's team poured through the breach, and Leia followed because stopping would mean dying. The first floor was a corridor lined with offices. Guards appeared. 2, then 3, then more. Dante's men engaged them, muzzle flashes lighting the dark like strobe lights. Leia pressed against the wall, gun raised, trying to remember everything Dante had taught her. A man rounded the corner, gun coming up. Leia didn't think. She fired. The recoil kicked through her arms. The man stumbled, red blooming across his shoulder. He dropped his weapon, clutching the wound. She'd hit him. She'd actually hit him. Her stomach lurched, but there was no time to process it. "Move!" Dante grabbed her arm, pulling her forward. They cleared room after room, some empty, some occupied. Leia fired when she had to, missed more often than she hit, but stayed on her feet. The stairs to the second floor were narrow, exposed. Dante went up first, and the rest followed. At the top was a heavy door. Dante kicked it open. Inside was a conference room, long table, expensive chairs, walls lined with monitors showing every corner of the compound. And at the head of the table sat 3 people, an older man in a tailored suit, silver hair slicked back, a woman in her 40s, cold-eyed and calculating, and a younger man who looked like violence wrapped in expensive clothes. The Viscari family leadership. The older man, Carlo Viscari, Leia realized, didn't even flinch. He just looked at Dante with something like disappointment. "Romano's dog," he said. "I expected him to come himself." "He's indisposed," Dante said, gun trained on Carlo's chest. "You put a price on his head. That was a mistake." "Was it? From where I'm sitting, he's bleeding out in some hole while I'm still here." Carlo leaned back in his chair. "You think killing us solves your problem? We're not the only ones hunting you." "No, but you're the ones who started it. We finished what your boss began when he interfered in our business. By protecting a woman from her husband, by taking something that didn't belong to him." Carlo's gaze shifted to Leia. "Hello, Mrs. Vance." Leia's grip on her gun tightened. "I'm not using that name anymore." "No? What are you using instead? Romano's whore?" Dante's gun didn't waver. Shut your mouth. It's the truth, isn't it? He took you from Ethan, dressed you up, paraded you around like you mattered. But you're just another piece on the board. And now Ethan's dead, and you're here playing soldier. Carlo smiled. How does it feel knowing you got him killed? Leia's vision blurred. I didn't. We killed Ethan because he was weak, because he failed to control his own wife and it made him a liability. If you just died in that alley like you were supposed to, none of this would have happened. The words hit like bullets. Leia's hand shook. Her finger hovered over the trigger. Don't listen to him, Dante said quietly. He's trying to get in your head. Is he wrong? Leia's voice cracked. Ethan's dead. Adrian's dying. Your men are dying. All because All because you survived, Dante cut in. That's not a crime. That's not a sin. That's just what you did. Carlo laughed. Touching. Really? But it doesn't change the facts. You're all dead. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But we'll find you, and we'll make it slow. Not if you're dead first, Dante said. He fired. The shot caught Carlo in the chest. He jerked back, eyes wide, blood spreading across his white shirt. The woman screamed. The younger man dove for cover. Gunfire erupted from everywhere. Leia hit the floor as bullets tore through the air above her. She rolled behind an overturned table, heart slamming against her ribs. Dante and his men were pinned down. Guards poured in from the hallway, more than they'd anticipated. We need to go, Lopez shouted over the noise. Now! Not without finishing this! Dante returned fire, dropping 2 guards. Leia looked around the edge of the table. The younger Viscari was moving toward a door at the back of the room, an exit they hadn't accounted for. If he escaped, this was all for nothing. She didn't think. She just moved. Leia broke cover, sprinting toward the door. Bullets chased her, punching holes in the wall beside her head. She reached the younger Viscari just as he grabbed the handle. He spun, gun coming up. Leia fired first. The shot was wild, panicked, but it connected, caught him in the leg. He went down hard, screaming. Leia stood over him, gun pointed at his head. Call them off, she said. Her voice didn't sound like hers. It was cold, flat, dead. Go to hell. Call them off, or I kill you. He spat blood. You don't have it in you. Leia's finger tightened on the trigger. She thought about Ethan, about the alley, about Adrian bleeding in her arms, about 6 years of being told she was weak, worthless, nothing. You're right, she said. I don't. She lowered the gun. The younger Viscari's expression shifted to relief, and Dante shot him in the head. The sound was deafening. Blood and brain matter sprayed across the expensive carpet. Leia staggered back, bile rising in her throat. Everyone out! Dante barked. Move! They ran, down the stairs, through corridors thick with smoke and bodies. More guards appeared, but Dante's team cut through them with brutal efficiency. Leia's ears rang. Her vision tunneled. She couldn't feel her hands, couldn't feel anything except the sick twist in her gut and the memory of the younger Viscari's head snapping back. They burst out of the building into chaos. Alarms shrieked. Floodlights blazed. Guards converged from every direction. To the fence! Dante led them in a dead sprint across the compound. Gunfire chased them. Lopez went down, clutching his side. Garcia grabbed him, hauled him up, kept moving. They reached the fence, scrambled through the gap they'd cut. The van was where they'd left it. They piled in, and the driver floored it. Leia sat in the back, gasping, shaking, blood on her hands. She didn't know if it was hers or someone else's. Dante was on the phone. It's done. Both leaders dead. But we're compromised. They know we're coming. Voice on the other end, too muffled for Leia to make out. Dante's jaw tightened. Understood. We're heading there now. He hung up. What's happening? Leia asked. The Viscaris had a contingency, a final play. Dante looked at her and his expression made her blood freeze. They're moving on the cabin. Right now. Leia's heart stopped. Adrian. He's not alone. We left guards, but they're outnumbered. How long do we have? We're 30 minutes out. They're already there. Then drive faster! Leia's voice cracked into a scream. Drive faster! The driver pushed the van to its limits, tires screaming around corners. Every second felt like an eternity. Leia's mind raced. Adrian was still unconscious, still helpless. If the Viscaris got to him? No, she couldn't think about that. She checked her gun. 3 rounds left. She reloaded with shaking hands. When we get there, Dante said, you stay in the van until I clear it. No. Laius, I'm not staying in the van while he dies. I'm going in. You'll get killed. Then I get killed, but I'm not hiding. Dante stared at her. Then he nodded. Stay close to me. Do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run. Clear? Clear. The cabin appeared through the trees. Even from a distance, Leia could see the carnage. Bodies on the ground, smoke rising, windows shattered. The van screeched to a halt. Dante's team poured out, weapons raised. Leia followed, her heart in her throat. Gunfire still echoed from inside the cabin. They approached in formation, using trees for cover. Dante signaled, and they breached the front door. Inside was a war zone. Furniture overturned. Bullet holes in every wall. Blood everywhere. Dante's guards, the ones they'd left behind, were dead. All of them. And in the back bedroom, standing over Adrian's still form with a gun pressed to his head, was a man Leia didn't recognize. Tall, scarred, eyes like dead water. Drop your weapons, he said calmly, or I put a bullet in his brain. Dante froze. His men froze. Leia's hands trembled around her gun. The man smiled. Smart. Now kick them over. Don't. Adrian's voice rasped from the bed. Leia's breath caught. He was awake. Barely. His eyes were half open, glazed with pain and drugs. Stay quiet, the man said, pressing the gun harder against Adrian's temple. Leia, Adrian said. His gaze found hers across the room. Run. I'm not leaving you. Run. She's not going anywhere, the man said, because if she moves, you die. If any of you move, he dies. That's how this works. What do you want? Dante asked. My bosses are dead. That means I'm out of a job. But I'm a professional. I finish what I start. He looked at Leia. You killed them. So you're going to watch him die. Then I'm going to kill you. Then everyone else in this room. Leia's mind raced. Her gun was 3 feet away, kicked into the corner with the others. The man's finger was on the trigger. One wrong move and Adrian was dead. Please, she said. Don't. Begging. How predictable. I'll do anything. Just don't kill him. Anything? The man's smile widened. How about this? You pick up that gun in the corner. Put it to your own head and pull the trigger. You do that. I let him live. The room went silent. Leia's pulse roared in her ears. Leia, don't, Adrian said, struggling to sit up. The man shoved him back down. Stay still or I end this now. Leia looked at Adrian, at the man who'd pulled her out of an alley and given her a reason to fight. The man who'd taken a bullet protecting her. The man who'd seen her as more than just a victim. She looked at Dante, who was watching her with something like horror. Then she walked to the corner and picked up the gun. Leia, no! Adrian's voice was raw, desperate. She turned back to the man. You promise you'll let him live? I'm a professional. I keep my word. Don't believe him, Dante hissed. Leia raised the gun to her temple. Her hands were steady now, completely steady. I'm sorry, she said to Adrian, for all of this. Don't you dare! Adrian tried to get up, but his body wouldn't cooperate. Don't you fucking dare! I love you, Leia said, and she pulled the trigger. The click of an empty chamber echoed like a scream. The man's eyes widened in confusion. And in that half-second of distraction, Dante moved. He crossed the room in 2 strides, faster than Leia had ever seen anyone move. His hand closed around the man's wrist, twisting the gun away from Adrian's head. The gun fired. The bullet punched through the ceiling. Dante slammed the man against the wall, and they struggled, both fighting for control of the weapon. Leia scrambled for another gun, Lopez's, lying near his body. She grabbed it, turned. The man had broken free from Dante. His gun came up, aiming for Dante's chest. Leia fired. The shot caught the man in the side. He stumbled, but didn't fall. He turned the gun on her. She fired again, and again, and again, until the gun clicked empty and the man collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. Silence. Leia's arms dropped to her sides. The gun clattered to the floor. Dante was staring at her, chest heaving. Adrian was trying to speak, but no words came out. Leia walked to the bed, dropped to her knees beside it. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know what else to do." Adrian's hand found hers. His grip was weak, but there. "You're insane," he said. His voice was hoarse, wrecked, completely insane. "I know. You could have died. But I didn't. The gun was empty. I didn't know that. I just needed him to think I'd do it." Adrian pulled her closer until their faces were inches apart. His eyes were fierce despite the pain. "Don't ever do that again." "I can't promise that." "Leia, you would have done the same for me." He didn't have an answer for that, because they both knew it was true. Dante cleared his throat. "We need to move. There could be more." "Can he travel?" Leia asked. "He'll have to." Dante looked at Adrian. "Can you walk?" "Not well, but I'll manage." They got him up, Leia on one side, Dante on the other. He was pale, sweating, but conscious. That was enough. They made it to the van, piled in. As they drove away from the cabin, Leia looked back at the bodies, the blood, the wreckage of what had been their sanctuary. "Is it over?" she asked. "The Viscaris are leaderless," Dante said. "Their organization will collapse within days, so yes, for now, it's over." Leia leaned back against the seat. Adrian's head rested on her shoulder. His breathing was labored, but steady. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere they'll never find us." Leia closed her eyes. She'd walked into hell. She'd killed. She'd been willing to die. And somehow, impossibly, she'd survived. But the woman who'd bled out in that alley was gone forever. In her place was someone harder, someone who knew what she was capable of, someone who'd chosen to fight back. And won. The safe house was a waterfront property 200 miles from the city, isolated, anonymous, the kind of place that existed on paper under 3 different shell companies, and in reality as a fortress disguised as a vacation rental. They arrived as dawn broke over the water, the sky bleeding pink and gold across waves that looked deceptively peaceful. Adrian could barely walk. Dante and Leia got him inside onto a couch in the main room. The doctor was already there. She'd been extracted from the cabin before the Viscaris hit, relocated here as a contingency. She examined Adrian with quick, efficient movements, then looked at Dante with an expression that made Leia's stomach drop. "He needs a hospital," she said. "That's not an option," Dante replied. "Then he needs rest. Real rest. No stress, no movement, nothing that could tear the stitches or cause internal bleeding. He's running on fumes and stubbornness." "How long?" 2 weeks minimum. A month would be better." Dante nodded. "We can give him that." The doctor turned to Leia. "You look like hell, too." Leia glanced down at herself. She was still wearing the blood-soaked clothes from the compound raid. Her hands were scraped raw. A cut above her eyebrow she didn't remember getting had crusted over with dried blood. "I'm fine," she said. "No, you're not. But you're standing, so you're better off than him." The doctor gestured to a hallway. "Second door on the right. There's a shower and clean clothes. Use them." Leia wanted to argue, wanted to stay with Adrian, but one look at him, pale, eyes closed, chest rising and falling in shallow breaths, told her he wasn't going anywhere. She went. The shower was scalding hot, and she stood under it until the water ran clear instead of pink, scrubbed her skin until it hurt, trying to wash away the feeling of pulling the trigger, of watching men fall, of standing with a gun to her own head and not caring if it was loaded. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel with her hair dripping, she found clothes laid out on the bed. Jeans, a soft sweater, socks, all in her size. Margaret's work, probably, even though Margaret hadn't made the trip. Leia dressed mechanically, her mind elsewhere. She'd killed people today. 3, maybe 4. She couldn't remember exactly. The faces blurred together. She waited for the guilt to hit. The horror. The breakdown everyone always talked about when you took a life. But all she felt was numb. And underneath the numbness, a cold clarity. She'd do it again if she had to. That realization should have terrified her. Instead, it just made her tired. When she returned to the main room, Dante was on the phone, speaking in rapid-fire Italian. He saw her and held up a finger. 1 minute. Leia sat in the chair beside the couch where Adrian slept. His face was still too pale, but his breathing seemed steadier now. The doctor had hooked him to an IV, changed his bandages, given him something for the pain. Dante finished his call and crossed to her. "How is he?" Leia asked. "Stable. The doctor says if we can keep him quiet for a few weeks, he'll recover fully." "And after that?" Dante sat in the chair opposite hers. "After that, we figure out what's left." "What do you mean?" "The Viscaries are done. Leadership dead, their operations in chaos. But that doesn't mean we're safe. There'll be people looking to fill the power vacuum, people who might see us as obstacles. So we're still targets. We're always targets. That's the life." Leia looked at Adrian. "I don't want this life." "Then what do you want?" The question hung in the air. Leia didn't have an answer. Dante leaned back, studying her. "You did good today. Better than good. You kept your head when most people would have fallen apart. I almost got everyone killed." "No, you saved Adrian's life. If you hadn't bluffed with that empty gun, the shooter would have executed him and moved on to the rest of us." He paused. "That took guts. Stupid, reckless guts. But guts. I didn't know it was empty." "Would it have mattered if it wasn't?" Leia's hands curled into fists in her lap. "I don't know." "Yes, you do. You were ready to pull that trigger. I saw it in your eyes." "And that makes me what? Brave? Insane?" "It makes you a survivor." Dante stood. "Get some rest. We're safe here for now. I'll keep watch." He left her alone with Adrian and the sound of waves crashing against the shore outside. Adrian woke 3 hours later. Leia had been dozing in the chair, but the change in his breathing pulled her back to consciousness. She sat up, blinking, and found him looking at her. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey." His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. "How do you feel?" "Like I got shot." "You did get shot." "Then I feel appropriate." He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it, pain twisting his features. "Don't move." Leia stood, adjusting the pillows behind him so he could recline without tearing his stitches. "Doctor's orders." "Since when do you follow orders?" "Since you almost died." Adrian's expression softened. "I'm okay." "You're not, but you will be." He was quiet for a moment, watching her, then, "You shouldn't have come back for me. In the penthouse. We've had this conversation, and we're going to keep having it until you understand that you can't keep risking your life for mine." "Why not? You do it for me." "That's different." "How?" "Because," he stopped, swallowed. "Because you have a future. You can still walk away from all of this. I can't." Leia sat on the edge of the couch, careful not to jostle him. "What if I don't want to walk away?" "You should." "But I don't." "But I—" Adrian reached up, his hand finding hers. His grip was weak but steady. "Leia, listen to me. What happened today? The compound, the cabin, all of it. That's my world. It's ugly and violent, and it never stops. You don't belong in it." "I killed 3 people today," Leia said quietly. "I stood in a room with a gun to my head and didn't flinch. I'm already in your world. I've been in it since you pulled me out of that alley. That doesn't mean you have to stay. And what's the alternative? I disappear? Start over somewhere with a new name and pretend none of this happened?" "Yes." "I can't do that." "Why not?" "Because I'd be running, and I'm done running." Adrian's jaw tightened. "This isn't about courage. It's about survival." "No." Leia leaned closer, her voice fierce. "It's about choosing. For 6 years, Ethan chose for me. Where I went, who I talked to, what I wore. Then you chose for me, pulled me out of that alley, brought me to your home, kept me there because you decided it was safer. And I let you, because I was scared and broken and I didn't know how to be anything else. Leia, but I'm choosing now. I'm choosing to stay. I'm choosing you." The words landed between them like a grenade. Adrian stared at her, his expression unreadable. "You don't know what you're saying." "Yes, I do. You're traumatized. You're in shock. You're in love with you." Silence. Leia's heart hammered in her chest. She hadn't meant to say it, hadn't even fully acknowledged it to herself until the words left her mouth. But they were true. Somewhere between the alley and the compound, between the training sessions and the quiet conversations in the library, she'd fallen for a man who was supposed to be untouchable. A man who ruled through fear and violence, but had given her the one thing Ethan never had, the freedom to choose. "You can't be," Adrian said finally. His voice was strained. I'm not someone you love. I'm a criminal, a killer. I've done things that would make you sick if you knew the details. I know enough." "No, you don't. You know the version of me that saved you. That's not all I am. I know you protected me when you didn't have to. I know you gave me a choice when I'd forgotten what that felt like. I know you took a bullet meant for me and would do it again." Leia's voice cracked. "I know you're not perfect, but neither am I. Not anymore." Adrian's hand tightened around hers. "You deserve better." "Maybe, but I don't want better. I want you." For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he pulled her down, slowly, carefully, until her forehead rested against his. "You're going to regret this," he whispered. "Probably. I can't promise you safety, or normalcy, or anything resembling a normal life. I don't want normal. Normal got me beaten and left for dead." "Leia," she kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, tasting of salt and blood and survival. He kissed her back with a desperation that felt like drowning and breathing at the same time. When they finally broke apart, Adrian's eyes were bright. "I love you too," he said. "I have since the moment you told Ethan you weren't his anymore. Maybe before that. I don't know." Leia's throat tightened. "So what now?" "Now we heal. And then we figure out how to build something that isn't just survival." "Can we do that?" "I don't know, but I want to try." The weeks that followed were strange. The world outside continued to spin. The Viscari organization collapsed exactly as Dante had predicted. Infighting, arrests, assets seized. The city's criminal landscape shifted, new players emerging to fill the vacuum. But inside the safe house, time moved differently. Adrian healed slowly. The doctor visited daily, monitoring his progress, adjusting medications. Dante coordinated what was left of their operation remotely, managing the fallout and protecting their interests. And Leia learned what it meant to exist without fear. She woke without checking over her shoulder, ate without someone monitoring her portions, spoke without weighing every word for hidden consequences. It was disorienting, liberating, terrifying. Some days were harder than others. She'd wake from nightmares of the compound, of pulling the trigger, of blood spreading across expensive carpet. Adrian would hold her until the shaking stopped, never asking her to explain, just being there. Other days she felt almost normal. She'd sit on the deck watching the ocean, reading books from the house's extensive library, talking with Dante about everything and nothing. Marcus showed up in the third week, grinning when he saw her. "Heard you went to war," he said. Something like that. "How'd it feel?" Leia thought about it. "Like falling and then landing." Marcus nodded, like that made perfect sense. "You ready to train again? Is Adrian cleared for it?" "Not him. You." So they trained, not for combat this time, but for strength, for rebuilding what the last few months had torn down. Leia pushed herself until her muscles screamed, until sweat poured down her face, until she felt like herself again, whoever that self was now. On the 23rd day, Dante called a meeting. They gathered in the main room, Adrian still moving carefully but no longer bedbound, Leia, Dante, and Marcus. "We have a decision to make," Dante said. "The Viscaris are gone, but that's created opportunities. People are reaching out, wanting to negotiate. Some want alliances. Some want to buy our silence. Some want our territory." "What do you recommend?" Adrian asked. "I recommend we take the money and disappear. Liquidate everything, set up new identities, and start over somewhere they'll never find us." "Running," Leia said. "Strategic retreat," Dante corrected. "There's a difference." "What's the other option?" "We rebuild. We use the chaos to expand, consolidate power, become stronger than before. And spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders," Adrian said. "We already do that." Adrian looked at Leia. "What do you think?" She was surprised he was asking. "It's your empire." "It's our future. You get a vote." Leia considered. The old her, the one who'd bled out in that alley, would have begged to disappear, to run as far and fast as possible. But that woman was dead. I think, she said slowly, that running won't solve anything. There will always be someone new. Someone who wants what we have or wants revenge for what we did. We can run forever, or we can make a stand. Making a stand means more violence, Dante said. More risk. Everything's a risk. At least this way we control it. Marcus grinned. I like her. Adrian was quiet, his expression thoughtful. Then he nodded. We rebuild, but we do it differently, smarter. We cut out the parts of the operation that made us vulnerable, consolidate the rest, and we make sure everyone knows that we're not to be touched. That's a declaration of war, Dante said. No, it's a declaration of strength. There's a difference. Over the next few days, they planned. Adrian reached out to old contacts, renegotiated deals, severed ties with anyone who'd shown even a hint of disloyalty. Dante coordinated logistics, moving people and resources like chess pieces on a board Leia was only beginning to understand. And Leia learned the business. Not because Adrian asked her to, but because she wanted to understand the world she'd chosen to live in. She sat in on meetings, asked questions, absorbed information like a sponge. She wasn't naive enough to think this was good work. It was criminal, dangerous, morally gray at best. But it was also honest in a way Ethan's world never had been. No one here pretended to be something they weren't. 6 weeks after the compound raid, Leia stood on the deck watching the sun set over the ocean. Adrian found her there, moving easier now, the limp almost gone. You okay? He asked. Just thinking? About? Everything. 6 months ago, I was dying in an alley. Now I'm here. Regrets? Leia turned to face him. Some, but not about this. Not about you. Adrian stepped closer, wrapping his arms around her. She leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his chest against her back. I got word today, he said quietly. Ethan's estate is being liquidated. Everything's being sold off to pay his debts. Leia's breath caught. And me? You were declared legally dead 6 weeks ago. There's a death certificate and everything. Ethan filed it before the Viscaras killed him. So I'm free. Legally, yes. You can claim your assets, contest the will, all of it. Do I want to? That's up to you. Leia thought about it. The life she'd had with Ethan, the penthouse, the money, the social standing, all of it built on lies and violence and cruelty. I don't want any of it, she said. Let it burn. You sure? Completely. Adrian kissed the top of her head. Then it burns. They stood there as the sun sank lower, painting the sky in shades of fire. What happens now? Leia asked. We go back to the city. We rebuild. We make sure no one ever tries what the Viscaris did. And us? We figure it out as we go. That's not much of a plan. It's the only one I have. Leia turned in his arms, looking up at him. I'm scared. Of what? That this won't last. That something will happen and I'll lose you. You might. This life doesn't come with guarantees. That's not comforting. It's honest. Adrian's hand came up, cupping her face. But I can promise you this. I will fight like hell to make sure we have a future. Not just survival, not just getting through each day, but something worth having. And if we fail, then we fail together. Leia rose on her toes and kissed him. It was different from that first kiss in the safe house. Less desperate, more certain, like a promise she was finally ready to make. When they broke apart, Adrian smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. I love you, he said. I love you too. Even knowing what I am? Especially knowing what you are. They returned to the city 2 weeks later. The estate had been compromised, so Adrian bought a new property, a penthouse downtown with security that would make a fortress jealous. Leia moved in without hesitation. It should have felt strange living with a man she'd known for less than 3 months, but it didn't. It felt like coming home. She kept training with Marcus, kept learning the business, kept becoming someone who could stand beside Adrian instead of behind him. Dante remained Adrian's second, but Leia found herself taking on responsibilities too, managing relationships with allies, sitting in on negotiations, making decisions that affected people's lives. It was terrifying, exhilarating, real. 3 months after they'd returned, Leia stood in a conference room across from a man who owed Adrian money. A lot of money. The man was trying to negotiate an extension, claiming hard times, making excuses. Leia listened politely. Then she leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen," she said, her voice calm and cold. "You're going to pay what you owe by the end of the week, all of it. If you don't, we'll seize your assets and you'll walk away with nothing. And if you try to run, we'll find you, and it won't be pleasant." The man paled. "I need more time." "You've had time. Now you're out." He left, paid in full 3 days later. Dante, who'd been watching from the corner, shook his head. "You're getting good at this." "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation," Leia smiled. "I'll take it." That night, she and Adrian lay in bed, tangled together, the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling. "Dante says I'm getting good at this," Leia said. "You are." "Does that scare you?" "Should it?" "I don't know. I'm not the woman you pulled out of that alley anymore." "No," Adrian agreed. "You're better." "Better?" "Stronger, sharper, more yourself." Leia turned to face him. "And if I become someone you don't recognize, then I'll get to know her and probably fall in love all over again." She laughed. "You're ridiculous." "I'm honest." "Same thing with you." He kissed her, slow and deep, and Leia felt something settle in her chest. Not peace. She'd never have that, not in this life, but something close. Certainty. She'd chosen this. Chosen him. Chosen to be someone who fought instead of ran. And for the first time in 6 years, she didn't regret a single choice she'd made. 6 months later, Leia stood in a graveyard. It was raining. Of course it was raining. The sky was gray, the ground soft and muddy. But she didn't mind. Ethan's grave was simple. No elaborate headstone, no flowery epitaph, just his name and dates. The estate had paid for it before everything was liquidated. Leia stood there for a long time, staring at the stone. She thought she'd feel something, closure maybe, or satisfaction, but all she felt was tired. "I'm not sorry you're dead," she said finally. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see what you were. I'm sorry I wasted 6 years trying to be what you wanted instead of who I was." The grave didn't answer. The rain kept falling. "I survived you," Leia continued, "and I survived everything that came after. I'm not the woman you married. I'm not the woman you tried to kill. I'm someone else now, someone stronger." She paused. "I hope wherever you are, you know that. I hope you know I won." She turned and walked away. Adrian was waiting by the car, umbrella in hand. He didn't ask what she'd said, just opened the door for her. As they drove away, Leia looked back one last time at the graveyard disappearing in the rain. Then she looked forward. 1 year after the alley, Leia sat in the library of their penthouse, reading. Outside, the city hummed with life, chaotic, dangerous, beautiful. Adrian walked in, phone in hand. "We have a problem," he said. Leia looked up. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that requires us to be smarter than everyone else." She set her book down and stood. "Then let's be smarter." He smiled. "You ready?" "Always." They walked out together, side by side, equals in a world that didn't forgive weakness. Leia had learned that the hard way. She'd learned that survival wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about walking through it and coming out the other side changed but unbroken. She'd learned that love wasn't about safety or comfort. It was about choosing someone even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. She'd learned that she was capable of things she'd never imagined. Violence, courage, sacrifice. And she'd learned that the woman who'd bled out in that alley was gone. In her place was Leia, no last name needed. Just Leia. A woman who'd traded one cage for freedom. A woman who'd found love in the last place she'd expected. A woman who'd walked through hell and decided to make it her home. Not because it was easy, but because it was hers. And that was enough. Bam! The rain had stopped. The city glittered below them, 1,000 lights in the darkness. Adrian took her hand. Leia squeezed back. And together they stepped into whatever came next. Not as victim and savior, not as captor and captive, but as two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something new, something messy and complicated and completely their own. something that looked a lot like freedom. The end.